Well, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however, what time it is for you. Sorry I'm a little bit late, a little bit behind, and normally I'm not, but when nature calls, and I had to go take care of that. Gotta love coffee. Um, so today we are going to close out the entire series that I did last month for Halloween. Unfortunately, there were circumstances in which I could not finish them during that month. But I'm going to close that out today and go through the 2000s and 2010s of horror cinema. Hey, Speedy Door, welcome. Glad to see you have been able to make it for today's stream. I don't really expect a whole lot of people to show up, and that's fine. No biggie. Oh, fuck. Rock and Ruin, thank you, man. Thank you for the $20. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you. Haven't seen you in a hot minute. No, I've seen you around with other streams, but good to see you pop in today and say hello. It's really appreciated. But we're going to start out with the 2000s today. And what better way to start out the 2000s movies, or horror movies, rather, is with Final Destination by James Wan. Oh shit! Hey, love it. Also, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I played around with some of the settings for my streams and changed what I've got for text on screen so y'all can see the chat in a little bit better. I think I like it a lot more than what it was, but hopefully you guys find that a little bit more amusing and a better way to see your chats and whatnot. But we're going to start out talking about Final Destination, the first one that came out in 2000 and was directed by James Wan. I wouldn't say it's the worst, but it's got some bad ones in it. There's some really, really good movies that came out in the 2000s horror-wise, so I wouldn't say it's the worst, but it's not the best. But Final Destination came out in 2000, was directed by James Wan, and it's basically got death itself as the unseen villain. It goes back to, I think it was the 40s or the 50s, where a lot of the villains in this particular kind of horror genre would be invisible. And a lot of people enjoyed that. I did. I think it's a really interesting concept to have death as a bad guy. And you never see him. It just comes out of nowhere. Actually, Eric, hate me all you want, but 13 Ghosts is a guilty pleasure of mine. And I think that the ghosts and their backstory are absolutely fucking fascinating and scary as shit. So, I will give that movie that. Final Destination franchise is stuck with me for a long time. I think it's Final Destination 2 that had the logs falling off the back of a truck. And holy shit, that I see any truck that has anything large and not completely secured, I'm staying the fuck away from that on the highway, period. But I digress, back to what I was talking about with Final Destination. This movie has a group of teens that somehow cheat death via getting off of a plane crash before it happens. If I remember correctly, one of the teens it has like a vision of sorts, and that vision is of them in the plane crashing. So he gets his friends to stay off of that plane and cheats death that way. And because they cheated death, and death is like, you fucked around, you're gonna find out, death decides to kill these teens in elaborate ways, like being electrocuted. There's I think one of them gets like killed by like a nail gun. I don't remember all the kills off the top of my head. It's been a while since I've seen it, but throughout the movies, there's so many really good kills. I think the last one in this particular movie is a big neon sign falling off of a building and swinging to kill one of the people that survived. That's just that kind of ending is so fuckery, and I love it. This was so popular that it had 4 sequels, or no, 5 sequels, and then there's a 6th sequel that has been confirmed as of October last year, so it's in production as far as I'm aware. But it's fantastic. Oh shit! Hey Miguel, see, thank you for the membership. I really appreciate it. You need to DM me on Discord or something, because I gotta get your request for a video. So we'll chat. And get that taken care of. If I'm not mistaken, that one you get to request a particular topic, whether it's a movie review or a true crime story or something of that nature, or something I can talk about on stream like an ARG. Just let me know. I'll get to that as soon as I possibly can. I've still got a few I got to take care of, but I get through them. The next movie I've seen part of, and that's Ginger Snaps. Ginger Snaps is somewhat of a new take on the werewolf film genre. And I liked what I saw from it. I just didn't see the entire movie. It basically has these 2 girls, or sisters, and one of them is attacked by a stray dog, obviously a werewolf. Hey, Billy Boomer, welcome. And she goes through this weird transformation process of becoming a werewolf. And it's kind of an allegory or a metaphor for puberty. Hey Nicole, hey Oracle. Also, congratulations to Oracle for winning the birthday raffle that I did a couple weeks back. I just remembered that I needed to raffle that off, and I did. Oracle won. Hey Stefan Corbino, I'm glad you could pop in. I know it's been a long time since we've had a little chat, but thank you for popping by. Hey Jessica, I love you. Jessica's one of my girls, one of my BWB girls. Love that woman. But Ginger Snaps is interesting in that it wraps up the metaphor of puberty to becoming a werewolf, and you basically just watch as the sister tries to cover for Ginger, the one that's snapping, clearly. She's trying to cover for Ginger while she's going through this phase and wanting to kill more people, and towards the end she just loses her mind and gives in completely. And unfortunately her sister has to basically kill her at the end. There's a prequel to this, there's a sequel to this, and then there was also a television series that was announced in October of 2020, so there's those. Cool. Hey. It was a popular movie. I'm not surprised it's getting a sequel, or not a sequel, a television series. A lot of people are going back, or a lot of producers are going back, and basically redoing these series or doing their own spin on it, because, I mean, no, it's definitely not better than American Werewolf in London or The Howling. The Howling and American Werewolf in London are by far the best, but Ginger Snaps is an interesting take and new spin on the genre. And here's one of my favorite series that came out of horror movies. It's a parody of a parody, and that's Scary Movie. I love and hate the series because it was so good up until 3. And then it did all these spin-offs that were really weird, like Epic Movie. I did really like Your Movie Sucks, because I loved the making fun of Twilight. I hate Twilight with a fucking passion, and that was part of the list. I'm not gonna cover it. Fuck Twilight. Just fuck Twilight. But Scary Movie was really great, in my opinion. I think 2 is the better one, especially because it's got Tim Curry in it. Like, come on. Anything with Tim Curry, mwah. Fucking piece de resistance, chef's kiss. Love it. But Scary Movie basically took the concept of Scream and did a full-blown comedy spin on it. And it basically takes a bunch of different movies and puts it together. Dog Soldiers is a very good one, I will agree. Exactly. Scary Movie was good until horror movies became parodies of themselves. 100,000%. I agree. It's just one of those very weird dichotomies where you gotta love the concept of it. The first 3 were my favorites, but after that I was just like, First 2 were directed by the Wayans brothers. The other movies were created by the same people. Yeah, I know. It's not very, very good. But again, Scary Movie basically took a lot of the 1990s movies that were big, along with some from like of the more like well-known ones from earlier than that, like The Shining and Halloween, Blair Witch Project, Psycho. The first 3 Scream movies were parodied in this, but there's a lot of content with Scary Movie. If you haven't seen at least the first 3, go watch them. Definitely the first 2. The first 2 are the best, period. But I would go suggest watching at least the first 2, maybe 3 if you decide you want to be kind of adventurous. The next one I have is our first international horror film on the list, and that's Ichi the Killer, that came out in 2001 and was directed by Takashi Miike. This one is kind of fucked. I haven't seen it. I may go watch it at some point, but it's fucked from the jump. I'll try to put it as lightly as I can, but it's a Yakuza horror film where a man is basically forced to kill rival faction members while also running away from a Yakuza boss, because in the very beginning of the movie, he catches the boss he's watching the boss assault a woman and is enjoying the show, we'll say. He's enjoying the show a little too much and gets busted watching this dude. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Everybody seems to agree. It's kind of but this particular movie had a gimmick where they would give you barf bags at the festivals, because apparently people would get really sick watching it because of the violence and a lot of the, really sadistic topics that are in this particular movie. And there's apparently a prequel film that came out in 2003. I don't know anything about it, but yeah, it's a shock movie. It's a shock horror kind of thing. That's what I understood from it when I was looking into it. But yeah, it's kind of fucked, but not totally surprising. Then we have the same year, Joyride, with the director being John Dahl and starring Paul Walker. I haven't heard a whole lot about this one. Apparently it was called Roadkill in the UK. But this one is kind of taking a little bit of the same topics as some of the older horror films, where you meet somebody on the road that's a stranger and they just follow you, and you have that kind of interesting storyline. And yeah, Lily's the best and Steve's on, but the one I know everybody knows is Paul Walker. don't know the other two. I might have recognized them from something else they've done, but I honestly don't recognize those other two names, Miguel C. But yeah, they start in this as well, besides Paul Walker. But this one basically has these college kids going on a road trip, and their stupid asses play a prank on a trucker over CB radio. And unfortunately for them, the trucker is basically a serial killer named Rusty Nails that decides, I'm gonna chase you guys and give you what for because you fucked with me. And that doesn't go over so well, obviously. Lots of killing happening, lots of chasing these guys around. It got 2 sequels, one in 2008 and one in 2014. I guess it wasn't popular enough where they wanted to do these sequels closer to it, but that's Joyride, I guess. It's kind of one of those forgettable ones. It's forgettable enough, I'm guessing, but it was on the list of ones that were notable for the 2000s. Here's one that I actually like, and I love the main actress for this. She's my favorite actress of all time. And that's The Others, starring Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman is absolutely one of my favorite actresses of all time. And this is probably one of her best later films. I don't think she's done a whole lot recently. I think she kind of stepped back from filmmaking or being involved in films, but this is a very good movie. The Others by Alejandro Amenabar in 2001. Stefan, dude, the Netflix series of The Grudge blew me away. I haven't seen a show feel this good and creepy since forever. I'll have to go take a look at that, but I've just been really fucking busy lately and haven't had the chance. But The Others it's a Spanish film initially, but was translated into English for international audiences. And this movie is so interesting because I'm gonna spoil it. It's kind of hard not to because it's, you know, the big M. Night Shyamalan ding dong twisty kind of movie that's done very well. But you're following this family, and they're living in their house and start experiencing some very supernatural, weird, creepy shit. And this is like World War II era family, and you end up finding out that they're the ghosts and not the people that are causing the supernatural disturbances to begin with. It's really fucking twisty, and I don't think anybody expected that when they were watching this movie. I highly suggest watching it, regardless of me spoiling it or not, but it's such a good movie. It's so good, and the twist at the end is well done. You don't see it coming at all, and it's probably one of my favorite performances from Nicole Kidman, period, because her soft-spoken nature lends so well to the character that she plays. So, The Others is one I absolutely 100% suggest to go watch if you haven't seen it already. Hey party, how you doing, my friend? The next film we'll talk about is 28 Days Later. And this one I absolutely love because it did a whole massive twist on the zombie genre in and of itself. Most zombies we know are kind of dumb, and they're really slow walking. They're not, they're already dead in most cases, but this one's more of like a viral infection kind of thing. And it's basically what happens is it starts as an infected chimpanzee with this really aggressive this virus that induces a very high aggression behavior called rage gets released in Great Britain. This virus spreads, and people start becoming basically zombies that can run at you and try to kill you instead of just the slow walking, I want to eat your brains kind of zombie that we are so used to in cinema at this point. I'm doing all right, party. Glad to hear you're doing good. I'm trying to get through this as best I can. We basically are watching people that survive this particular contagion trying to run away and get away from these infected people and this infection. And apparently the first movie has several different endings or alternate endings that were brought out with the DVD release. A sequel 28 weeks later was released in 2007, and apparently there's another film 28 months later that's supposed to be released, not released, or was brought up in 2019 and is in limbo at the moment. But 28 Days Later is very terrifying, and 28 Weeks Later is also very, very well done. I would suggest going and watching both. I definitely enjoyed them, so I think you would too. The next one we have is a Hong Kong horror film, and you'll notice that there's a lot of Hong Kong Chinese horror films popping up around this time. And this one's called The Eye. This one basically has a blind violinist get an eye cornea transplant and immediately starts seeing dead people and spirits and all things supernatural. And she's trying to figure out why this is happening, and ends up discovering that the eyes she got are from a psychic in from Thailand, basically, who was of the supernatural ability, and she's seeing what that person was seeing when they died. And she's just going through the whole gambit of trying to find out why she's seeing all this stuff. There probably was. A lot of this stuff did get remade. But I usually would just suggest watching the originals, because usually, like Nicole is saying, the originals are better, and the American remakes are pretty much usually trash. Hey, Cherry, welcome. Glad y'all could stop by. But this one is very interesting. I haven't seen it. Probably should. But there's The Eye. That one came out in 2002. The next one, I'm pretty sure everybody in here has at least seen this first one or heard of this first one. It's the Resident Evil movie. The very first one. The franchise that still goes on today and has gone to absolute shit, in my opinion, when it comes to the movies. This one was directed by Paul Anderson, came out in 2002, and is loosely, and I say loosely very, very seriously, loosely based on the video game franchise. And I think that they should have gone more with the main characters in the franchise, more than creating a new character as the main protagonist in these films. Although I will say that the first one is good in comparison to the rest, but the rest of the Resident Evil franchise is so... not franchise, at least the movie franchise is so bad. It got so bad. It's not good. I'm not happy with how it went. I love Tipster, and I love people that enjoy the Resident Evil, franchise, regardless if it's the films or the games, but I am not looking forward to that Raccoon City movie. It looks like dog shit to me, but that's just my opinion. Hey RBF, love you. Hey, what's up, Exotic? Glad y'all could stop by and say hello. I really appreciate it. But yeah, the Resident Evil franchise, of course they were going to do something like that, and not totally surprised by it. Obviously the Ring remake was in this. We already went over the original, so I don't really want to go into the remake very much. It's okay. I'd rather watch the Japanese original than screw around with the remake, honestly. But the next film I'm actually going to get into is a Korean film that's called A Tale of Two Sisters and is directed by Kim Ji-woon. This one, I had a hard time figuring out. I haven't seen it, so I had to try and go through like a plot summary and tried to put things together so I can concisely talk about it. So as best as I'm gonna get, like I said, it's a Korean film, and it basically starts with a girl being released from a mental institution, and she starts seeing ghosts in her house, particularly of her sister that was a twin. Correct me if I'm talking about this wrong, Nicole, but I'm really trying to summarize this as best I can from what I've got. And she sees ghosts in her home and then realizes later on that she's got some sort of dissociative identity disorder, and both her stepmother, and her sister are figments of her imagination this entire movie. Have a good one, Stefan. Glad to see you drop by. Enjoy the rest of your day, and see you, dude. But she realizes that, she's got she's got a dissociative identity disorder, and she's got a lot of trauma and problems with her stepmother, and she basically ends up back into an institution after realizing that she was institutionalized in the first place because her sister tried to commit suicide, and her mother tries to save her, or is it the mother? I don't know. But her mother and her sister end up dead due to a really freak accident, and her stepmother is the one that was having an affair with her dad while her dad was married to her mom. And yeah, it's so confusing, but it sounds interesting. I am having a hard time trying to summarize it, having not seen this movie and just going off of what information I can find. But yeah, it's interesting. Hey, what's up, Plush Man? Welcome to the stream. Apparently this was remade in 2009 by Universal, but I like I said, I haven't seen the original or the remake, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. Watch it. Nicole seems to like it, so I'm guessing it's good. Next movie we'll talk about is High Tension. This came out in 2003, and was directed by Alexandre Aja. This is a French horror film that was, released in the UK at some point, and in the US, I'm assuming. But it's about these college kids that return to one of the kids' family home, and a serial killer shows up while they're, enjoying their time. You see some of the kids trying to outsmart this murderer, or serial killer, and end up finding out that the other kid, not the one that the family's house they're staying in, but the other one, is a psychopath and is obsessed with the other kid in a sexual way, and is going after them because they were rejected. Interesting. Oh, what's up, Finn? Welcome. But yeah, another, foreign horror film that's kind of interesting. The next one we have is The Grudge, like everybody's brought up. This is a remake of the Japanese horror film, so I'm not really going to go over it again. I guess I'll kind of, outsmarted your outsmarting, yep. I'll go over the basic of it. It's basically a woman moves into a cursed home and is being haunted by ghosts of previous owners. There are two sequels that came out in 2006 and 2009. It were made again into 2020, which tends to happen with Japanese horror films. I like the remake of The Grudge. I like the original of The Grudge. It's probably one of the few remakes that I actually like when it comes to horror films. The next one is Night Watch in 2004 that was directed by Timur Bekmambetov. If you couldn't tell by that name, it's a Russian film, and you could definitely tell with the summaries that I could find of this that make no fucking sense. The most basic description I can give of this movie, I haven't seen it, once again. A lot of these movies I haven't seen because, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I was not a fan of most horror films until I started this channel and started to actually watch these and find a love of horror. I liked my classic horror films. I was not a fan of the newer stuff because I was a little bit of a little bitch, so a lot of these films I haven't seen, unfortunately. And some fortunately. But this particular Russian film is a dark fantasy that basically describes the fight between light and darkness in modern times. The light is, protected by the Night Watch. The day is protected by the night is protected by, or darkness is protected by the Day Watch. They fight, and you're watching one of the characters, you're just watching some of the characters that are on both those sides doing their job for that. The sequel, Day Watch, like Nicole was saying, came out in 2006. I couldn't really understand what it was trying to be about, what it was about, but yeah, Squatchin hangs. I like Squatchin. She here. The one that I have seen and do like, at least the first couple of them, is Saw by James Wan that came out in 2004. We've all heard about Saw. It kicked off the torture porn stuff all over again. The first one is just fucking fantastic. You don't see what's coming the first time you watch it, but it's gone off the rails like a lot of franchises have. Because it's got 6 fucking sequels. It's got 2 spin-offs. It's been rebooted twice with... It's 2 spin-offs / reboots. Reboots, whatever. Thank you, Squatchin. That's very sweet of you. But it's gone off the rails so far. I haven't watched all of the Saw films. I've seen the first one for sure. But other than that, I've kind of just seen the bits and pieces of it. I can't say a whole lot other than that. But I think that a lot of the kills are very interesting. There are some that are really good from each of the films that I know of, but the first one is absolutely fantastic, period. I can't wait for Saw in Space. Yeah, I'm waiting for that too. That's usually how it goes, but not so far with this one. We'll move on. We've got Shudder, which is a Thai supernatural horror film. You saw every Saw film until the 7th one before the reboot. Yeah, I can understand that. I haven't seen all of them because I've heard that they've just gotten way out there and just so fucking insane with the storyline and nothing makes sense anymore. I just don't want to touch it. I like the first film. I love the first film. I want to leave it at that. Yes, the Pit of Needles is always cringe. That one, and where she's sticking her hands in acid to get a key, and one lady's sticking her hands in a box full of that's got like sharps needles on it to try and get drugs because she's a drug addict. Anyway, back to the task at hand. We have a 2004 horror film, Shudder, by Banjong Pisantanakun. I don't know how to pronounce these. And Pakrum Wongpum. And this one is basically about a couple that is part of a hit and run car accident, and the woman that they killed with their car. Yes, Shutter. Yes. It's. I'm saying the English names of them. It's called something else, but I don't know how to pronounce it. I guess it Chateau Kotit Winyan is the original name of it. I'm just saying the English translation name, which is Shutter to press to capture ghosts, technically. But what happens is after the car accident, the woman that they accidentally killed, in the hit and run, is showing up in the husband, who is a photographer, his photos, and she's chasing after them to try and get revenge from, being murdered in a car accident. And she starts killing the people around them and eventually gets to them towards the end, obviously. But that's an interesting concept, having, somebody follow you through pictures and, get revenge via that in your friends. The next horror film is, it's bounced off of Saw in a way, but it helped kickstart the torture porn. It helped along the torture porn craze, and that's Hostel, directed by Eli Roth. Have I seen this one? No, I'm not completely. I don't really want to because it's kind of gross, and I'm not a big fan of exploitative films. I'm not a fan of those at all. I'm really not. So I don't watch them in general, but I do know enough about it to know it's pretty gross. But this one basically has a group of college students that go on a trip through Europe. They end up getting tricked into going to Slovakia to a hostel, and this hostel apparently is a kidnapping and torture ring where they kidnap unsuspecting people, and they use those people as torture victims and stuff like that. Yeah. Snuff light, yeah, definitely. You basically see the people that are kidnapped trying to get away, but getting killed in really gruesome, torture-y, snuff film ways. And then, obviously, somebody gets away. There's 2 sequels to it, and I'm not gonna watch any of them. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not into snuff stuff. I'm really not. The next that I have is The Host, which is another Korean film. This is a monster film. A gaiju, I guess, monster film. Which basically starts as this particular company is dumping bottles upon bottles of formaldehyde down a drain into the Han River in Korea. And after 6 years, a monster that was created through this starts coming out of the water and taking revenge on humans for doing what they did. And we're basically watching a man try to kill this creature and save their daughter from falling prey to the creature, which they're unsuccessful for. I haven't seen it. It seems like a very interesting movie, and I do particularly like monster movies, so I probably will watch it at some point. And I'm going to do a very quick pause because I have to go to the bathroom again. I will be right back. Y'all have fun in the chat, but we are almost done with the 2000s. Thank God. And then we'll get into the 2010s and close it out. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back again. Sorry about that. We're back again. But where was I? Okay, so the next film we're gonna go over is The Orphanage, which is directed by J.A. Bayona. And this one's a Spanish film, initially called Orfanato. I don't know. My brain doesn't work today. But this is basically about a former orphan that grows up and returns to the orphanage that she grew up in initially to try and reopen it and take in more kids that she can take care of the way she was taken care of. Unfortunately, her son, biological son, she's married and has kids at this point. They start seeing a friend that they make at this orphanage. It's a ghost, I guess. And the friend is convincing this son that the mother is not his actual mother. And he goes on a tirade after a while and then disappears. Unfortunately, this woman spends so much time trying to find their son, or her son, and ends up realizing that in her frenzy of trying to find her son initially, he was locked in a secret room that he couldn't get out of and ended up dying in that room. She ends up deciding to die so she could stay at the orphanage and take care of the spirits of the children that are still there. Sad. Very sad, but, there's the orphanage. It's apparently a good one from what I understand, but that's that one. Let's go into one I know and love very well, even though it is very hokey if you think about it. And that's Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, released in 2007 and directed by Tim Burton himself, with Johnny Depp heading the charge. I love Sweeney Todd. I love the musical, and I've got a little soft spot in my heart for the movie, just because I love the portrayal of some of the characters. Helena Bonham Carter is so good in this movie. Alan Rickman is so good in this movie, and I love the fuck out of the music in it. It's just so fucking good. Sorry to take my sip of coffee, but it's such a good movie. I enjoy it. I would love to see the musical itself live at some point, but it is so cool to see this brought to life in this way, and I think Depp does a good job at being Sweeney Todd. He's, a former barber that's put in jail because the judge of the town is in love with his wife and wants to take her away. And then, yes, rip Alan Rickman, we lost a legend in that man. That man was too good for us, and yeah. If you haven't seen it, I would go at least suggest going and giving it a look. It's a really good movie. A lot of good music in it. It's very dark. And I gotta... Sacha Baron Cohen in this movie. I love to sing his songs as Adolfo Pirelli. I love to sing his songs because they're so fucking funny and he's so good. And you get to see his chops. Note that a lot of really good actors like Hugh Jackman got their start on Broadway. And Sacha Baron Cohen has an opera background and a Broadway background. That's where he got his start. So you get to see that on full fucking display in this movie. It's so goddamn good. I love it. Fuck. I can't say how much I can't say enough how much I love it. But go see it if you haven't seen it. it's a good watch. A lot of people give it some shit, but I love it. I love it a lot. Next film we got is Cloverfield, directed by Matt Reeves. Cloverfield's really interesting. I like the original one. I love my original Cloverfield. I'm not a fan necessarily of the other two that have come out because they don't feel like Cloverfield movies to me. They're supposed to be in a universe together, but smells like piss. Yep. Piss with ink. Yep. There you go. Rock on Ruin. Yep. Exactly. It's such a good song. But Cloverfield was one of the ones that I remember being very revolutionary and was probably the first one since Blair Witch that was a found footage film everybody talked about a lot. This one is more so, I think, if I remember correctly, people would go to see it, and because it was a found film one, the camera shook a lot, and a lot of people got sick because they couldn't handle the jostling of the camera so much. Hi, Nuggies, I love you. But there's a lot of backstory to Cloverfield that I really enjoy, and I found a video that goes over that recently. I don't remember what YouTuber it's from, but Cloverfield is so good, and that it's a new take on alien invasion in some way, but from the sea, and yeah, it's a good movie. There's some really good lore behind it. If I could find that YouTube video, I'll throw it in my Discord. My Discord's linked in my about section on my channel page, but I'll find it and throw it in there. But it's a really good, interesting backstory to it, and apparently there's supposed to be another movie coming out soon. So I'm excited to see that. This movie basically is, like I said, a found footage film. It's a group of friends are celebrating one of them getting a new job out in Japan, and shit starts going down, and it becomes this big old fucking kaiju film that's really, really out there, and I very much enjoy. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's pretty cool. It's a really cool take on found footage films and kaiju. Next one is probably, I need to go watch the original. I need to go watch this again. I haven't seen it in a while, but I've heard very good things about it, and I remember it fondly. Let the Right One In, directed by Thomas Alfredson. It's a Swedish vampire film that's kind of similar to Ginger Snaps in a way. Because it's these kids meet. One of them is a vampire. Boy doesn't know it. And she's living in the next door neighbor's house to the particular, the boy in question, the protagonist of the story. And the boy has no idea that his new friend, is a vampire. And we're just watching as the vampire, is trying to hide that from the boy. But it becomes increasingly more difficult to do so. She ends up having to expose herself because the boy is being just heavily bullied, and she wants to protect him. But there's so much in this that is well done from what I remember and what people tell me. This is the favorite film of one of my friends, and I do need to go back and watch it again. I don't remember a whole lot about it. When I did see it, I was younger and didn't appreciate it as much. So, it's another very well done take on the vampire horror, and I highly suggest it. Unfortunately, it was remade in 2010. It isn't as good as the original, but I haven't heard extremely bad things about the remake. But if you're gonna watch one, watch the original. They came out in 2008. The next film I hear nothing but good shit about, and that's The Strangers, that came out in 2008 and is directed by Brian Bertino. This one, from what I've heard, is really fucking creepy. Little Vampires is a great kids movie, dude. Rock and Ruin, I love that movie. Thank you for bringing that up. I don't hear people talking about it enough. Probably because it's a really old movie and most people weren't alive around that time or weren't old enough to remember it. But it's a good one. The Strangers is basically a movie about a couple that go to their vacation home one night and notice that there's these masked people stalking them. And you're seeing throughout the movie them trying to fend these people off. And eventually they come in and they start torturing them. And there is a very telling scene in this movie that sticks with you no matter what you do. And that's a particular scene when they are the couple's tied up with these 3 masked people around them. And they ask, why are you doing this to us? And I'm summarizing it, you know, as best I can. But they're asking why they're doing this. And their response is from the blonde woman who looks... Usually when you think of a blonde young woman, it's like an innocence kind of thing from back in, you know, long time ago. That was the innocence thing. And she just responds with, because you were home. That is terrifying. Because there is no logical conclusion as to why these people are coming after you. It's like the serial killers that I talk about, where you try to rationalize why these people do these things, and the response that you get from the least expected person of the trio is, because you were home. Think about that for a second, and think about how fucking terrifying that is. I highly suggest that you go and experience this movie for yourself, and you experience that scene for yourself, because it is so chilling. The movie itself is so fucking scary and chilling. I highly suggest watching it. The next movie that I had on my list is Twilight, and no. Just no. I could literally do at least 30 minutes ranting about how much I dislike Twilight and the Twilight series. So, I'm not gonna do that. Maybe at some point, if somebody really wants me to do a collab on Twilight and give my thoughts about why I fucking hate it, I will, but at this point, no. Just no. No, no, no. No, 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 no. Fuck Twilight. Vampires don't sparkle. The end. There you go. There's Twilight for you. No. I literally in my notes just wrote no. That's it. Only thing I wrote in there. Fuck you, Mike. Stop it. No. The last movie we've got from the 2000s is... Yeah, exactly. It's a love story. No, it's a fan fiction. It's a fan fiction, not a horror movie. It's a fucking fan fiction. Can't tell me otherwise. Because it literally is. It's been proven to be a fucking fan fiction. The last movie I've got on my list for 2000s is Paranormal Activity. Now, I like the original Paranormal Activity. It's freaky as fuck. And I see exactly why this movie caught on as much as it did. Because it was taking... It was, I think, one of the first forays into the more modern technology that we have and bringing it into a horror aspect, along with bringing it into somebody's home. Because the Blair Witch Project, you're out and about. With Cloverfield, you're out and about. You're in the world. You're not at your home. Paranormal Activity, shit's in your home. You're recording it in your fucking home. Oh, Mari, I refuse to read the books. I refuse to watch the movies. The closest I've watched to the movies for Twilight is the Your Movie Sucks, or Vampires Must Die, I think it's called, but it's on the same train as the scary movie series. It's on that same train, but no to all of that. I know plenty about it because of like one of my best friends from childhood was a massive fanatic of it at one point and would tell me everything. And everything about it, I hate it. I'm an Anne Rice vampire lore lover. I'm not a I don't like Twilight. No. Back to the task at hand. Y'all are getting me all pissy and shit, and I need to stop. But Paranormal Activity came out in 2009. Was directed by Oren Peli. But the premise of the movie is that a couple is filming supernatural shit going on in their house. And they start to film this, and you're basically watching as these demons become, or spirits become more, I'm not gonna go over Dracula 2000. It's a great movie. It's really weird. I like it. But it was not on the list of movies that were important to the 2000s. So I'm not going to really go over it a whole lot. Come on, you're saying you didn't like the vampire... No, I didn't like the vampire baby. That's not how it works. I've seen vampire babies be done right, and it's not that. Anyway, fuck you, Mike. But we watch as basically the female of the group, the wife or girlfriend, gets taken over by demons and starts, going after the husband. But that's the 2000s. And then we start getting into the 2010s, which is its own interesting monster of horror films. We will start with Black Swan in 2010, directed by Darren Aronofsky. I've heard nothing but good things about this. I love Natalie Portman. I'm a huge fan of Mila Kunis, but I have yet to see this one. Again, I've heard nothing but good things about this horror film, though. It's basically the story of a ballerina who is battling with her inner saboteur and her inner darkness while trying to become the lead dancer in her company, or ballet company. And if you're not aware of how cutthroat ballet is, the world of ballet is, and dancing in general, this is the perfect way to be introduced to that, because there's so much that is required of you to be a ballet dancer and to be a star in the world of ballet. And you're watching Natalie Portman's character go through a descent into darkness because she's has to do things or seeing things and dealing with things that she's just the normal human person does not want to deal with. And she's battling with Mila Kunis's character about the lead role, and this starts going into a downward spiral for her where she starts seeing Mila Kunis's character doing certain things that she's the one that's actually to blame for. She's battling with her inner saboteur, and it's kind of like a dissociative identity thing, where she thinks it's Mila Kunis's character doing these things, and it's really not. She's just losing her mind. Yeah. But it's a very good film from what I understand. A lot of people love this movie and love the where this all goes and what places it explores in the human psyche that a lot of people just don't want to touch. So if you want to watch a psychological thriller that's very well done and has a lot of message behind it, watch that. And now we're going to go into a film that kickstarted a phenomenon that we've been dealing with for the last 10 plus years, and that's the Insidious franchise. Technically it's The Conjuring, and The Conjuring will come up later, but Insidious is where it started. James Wan in 2010 directed Insidious. And Insidious is basically the story of a family that experiences a haunting after their child goes into a coma. And the child is basically in a coma in the first place because they're being possessed by an evil spirit. And this evil spirit is causing a lot of problems for the family. I haven't watched any of them either, really. I don't, maybe I'll watch The Conjuring just because I think that the original story behind those characters is interesting. But, meh. But basically the family calls in paranormal investigators to try and exorcise the spirit from their house and from their kid. And a whole lot of shenanigans and chicanery goes on. And I heard it's a good film. It's just, I don't know if I would watch it. I might at some point. I don't know. But I've seen a lot of reviews on the Insidious and Conjuring universe. This one spawned 2 sequels and a prequel on its own, but we'll get into the massive universe that is The Conjuring in a little bit, because that comes 5 years later. Or 3 years later, sorry. The next one that I think is really interesting that came up in the list of ones that I found is You're Next. You're Next is a spin on the slasher film series, franchise, or genre that has the final girl actually not be a little, like, inexperienced bitch, for lack of a better way of putting it. Your Next is basically a guy brings his girlfriend over for a family dinner, and these masked invaders come in and start killing family members. The girlfriend, unfortunately, for the masked men, is actually well-trained in a lot of different things. I think, like, hunting and self-defense and stuff like that. She's very crafty, and she starts fighting them back with traps and starts killing them off one by one. And she goes literal mask off psycho when she finds out that her boyfriend had set this up to try and get inheritance money from the family. Yeah, she goes kind of batshit and kills everybody, basically. It's really an interesting spin because you don't normally see that in horror movies. I would suggest going and watching it if you want to see something that's interesting like that. Do it. But the next one, I would definitely, absolutely, 100% suggest going and watching, and that's Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods, directed by Drew Goddard, is a fucking masterpiece, and is a love letter to all horror movies in general. Even if it has a comedic spin to it, it's an amazing, amazing homage to all horror before it. And you basically have these group of friends that are gathered at a cabin in the woods for a trip that's actually supposed to be a ritual of sorts to appease these gods. And all of these characters are supposed to be horror movie tropes for different, characters. In most horror movies, like the final girl, there's the skank, there's so much in this that is so amazing. And it's written by Joss Whedon, which if you love Buffy and Angel and that sort of thing, you'll like this. But it basically has a bunch of lab techs watching this group of kids and placing bets on what's going to happen throughout this ritual. And these rituals happen all over the world in order to appease these gods to keep human race alive. And this particular group finds that this is going on and finds a dungeon of monsters under the fucking cabin. Yeah, he's an asshole, but his shows are great. I love Buffy. Sorry. I love Buffy and Angel. Those will forever be two of my favorite shows. I've watched them over and over. I'm still gonna love those till I die, whatever. But the fun twist of Cabin in the Woods that I love the most, I'm gonna spoil it. I don't care. It's just too funny not to bring up. But this particular, like, group of kids finds out that there's a dungeon of these different monsters, like werewolves and vampires and kaiju and all that fun shit underneath this fucking woods. Under this fucking cabin. And they just realize they're being used for this ritual, and they go, fuck it. I don't give a shit about this ritual. Fuck humanity. And and it basically just, it's like, fuck it, and it's the end of the human race. I've seen bits and pieces of Cabin Fever. I'm not gonna watch it purely because of just how the gross shock stuff in it. Not gonna happen. It's not my thing. I'm not gonna address any more about that, Mari. Just, I'm not interested in going into that sort of thing. It's not what I'm here to talk about. But Cabin in the Woods is a fucking phenomenal movie. Have a good one, Sherry. Thank you for stopping by. But yeah, if you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods, go watch it. I use probably my favorite part in the movie in one of my movie review intro videos. Love it. It's great. Go watch it if you haven't. It's fantastic. Another franchise that's very popular since the 2010s is The Purge. And I enjoy the concept of The Purge. I've seen the first one. I haven't seen most of the rest. I haven't seen the rest of them. I just haven't cared enough to go do that. But The Purge is probably one of the other franchise that's become the most popular since its inception in 2003. The original was directed by James DeMonico, and it's basically upon the premise that the U.S. has enacted a law where one night a year, all crime is legalized. All crime is legalized. And this night is called The Purge. And during The Purge, anything goes, and because The Purge has been enacted, there's the level of crime rate is pretty much 1%. It's dropped all crime rates, period. In this particular one, what we follow storyline wise is there's this wealthy family in a gated community that is trying to keep this gang of thugs, mass thugs that are heavily armed, out of their home, because they are trying to come in, steal their, kill them, steal their money, and all that fun shit. It is kind of funny in a weird way. Like, I think the concept is interesting, but it would never work. I don't think it would ever work. I don't think anything would ever like that happen anyways. It's a fantastic concept. Like, it's one of those things that you'd have to be very high to think about, and I don't think I've seen anything like it before this. It became so popular that 4 sequels were made. A 5th one is in the works. There's a prequel that was made, and there was a television show on USA Network from 2018 to 2019. So this is probably one of the more prominent franchises since everything started in 2010. It's still going, obviously. The next movie that I'll talk about is The Conjuring. This is the start of the Conjuring universe. This is the start of James Wan really coming into his own, and everybody, although he's made some really shit films since, but this is where that universe started, was with the original Conjuring. And it follows the demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren when they're called to a home of a family that has a possessed doll named Annabelle. And this is based on a true story. But it's not 100%. Obviously, when it says based on a true story, it's not usually completely 100% accurate. And when these demonologists arrive, they basically poke the bear with these demons, and the demons start causing a lot of shit to go on in the house that results in the Warrens removing this doll from the home and taking it back to their own home where its other haunted shit is at. There are 2 sequels, Conjuring 2 and Conjuring 3, and then there are 5 spin-off films from this. Annabelle, Annabelle Creation, The Nun, Curse of La Llorona, and Annabelle Comes Home. Now, there are also 2 future spin-off films that are in the works, The Crooked Man, and then a Nun sequel. And 5 short films that came out based upon this stuff. The Nurse, The Confession, What's Wrong with Mom, Blund's Lullaby, and Innocent Souls. All that came out in 2017. This universe is massive. It's a massive franchise that has become very well known over the last decade and 2 years, or something like that. Last decade, I'll just say. Yeah, The Nun is getting a sequel, apparently. I don't know why. Because a lot of these spin-off films are really bad, from what I understand. I haven't watched any of them. I don't want to. But there you go. Yeah, they're horrible people in real life. Yes, they are. Now that we've gone over The Conjuring, that's the other big one. Let's talk about one that's well known but is not a franchise, The Babadook. The Babadook was directed by Jennifer Kent in 2014 and is an Australian psychological horror where a mother is basically raising a bratty as fuck kid, and because of the situation she's in with her personal life, she starts to have a mental breakdown. And this mental breakdown starts to manifest in the form of the Babadook, which is a storybook monster that she's introduced to her son after reading this particular story to him. There's a lot of reviews on this and a lot of deep dive into how the messages in there's a lot of meaning behind a lot of the stuff that's going on, and there's a lot of stuff related to the mother's trauma and the son adding on to that causes the events in the movie to happen. It's a good movie. It's freaky, and if you haven't watched it, I suggest you do. But there's The Babadook. The next one I kind of giggle at, and I think it's fun, even though it's a somewhat shitty Christmas horror movie, and that's Krampus, directed by Michael Doherty. Now, Krampus is a character from folklore that's been around for a very long time. It's from Austro-Bavarian folklore, where there is a Santa Claus, quote unquote, but instead of you getting coal for being a bad kid, you get Krampus in this lore. And Krampus is this goat-like figure that will drag you to hell of sorts, or this really freaky realm of your worst nightmares if you're a bad kid. And that's what parents would threaten their children with. And in this particular movie, Krampus shows up when a really shitty family comes together for Christmas. And just, they're all around shitty people to each other. And because they're all around shitty people to each other around fucking Christmas, Krampus shows up and basically tortures the fuck out of them and then drags them into a realm of torture, of constantly being stuck in this world, because they didn't have the Christmas spirit. They didn't have gratitude for their family. You just watch for Adam Scott. Yeah, Adam Scott is a good actor, but this is a good guilty pleasure film in my opinion, and it's a good take on a particular character of folklore that hadn't gotten a lot of attention up until this point, at least. The next film is The Boy, directed by William Brent Bell. And this one is really creepy. I haven't seen it, but from what I'm understanding about it and what I'll describe, it's really fucking creepy. Basically, this woman that's trying to get away from her abusive ex is hired as a nanny for a life-size porcelain doll named Brahms, and is given a bunch of rules on how to, you know, take care of Brahms. Well, she breaks these rules pretty early on, and starts experiencing some really weird shit. Like the doll talking to her and moving around, and, you know, the shit that possessed dolls do. After a lot of different shit, she realizes that she was chosen to be the lifetime partner of this doll. And there is a life-size version of her being hidden away in this particular home. And now she's trying to get away from the doll because the doll wants to kill her and put her soul in the other doll and then be friends for life. That's, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. No, I don't. It wasn't a great movie, but the scene where he crawls out of the wall almost made me pee myself. I've heard it's a good movie. I've heard good things about it, but everybody has their own opinions on it. I haven't seen it, so I don't know exactly my take on it, but, you know. The next one is really fucked up. I'm not gonna get into how fucked up it is too much, but Don't Breathe in 2016 by Fede Alvarez. Yeah, I don't know why they made a sequel to this, and I don't know why they made the sequel the way they did. But it's not good. Basically, it's a good movie, it's just really fucked up. Basically, Don't Breathe is the story of a group of cons that are going to a blind man's home after he wins a huge settlement of money to steal said money, and find out that this guy is not to be fucked around with. You basically are watching these guys get really fucked and murdered. Which they deserve because they're, you know, trying to get into this guy's house and steal his shit. But what really gets gross is that the main character is then kidnapped. Because apparently she was involved with the murder of dude's wife and kid or something of that nature. And he decides that he's gonna make her give him another kid. If you haven't heard of how this occurs, it's not good. And it has to involve a turkey baster of some sorts. Yeah. Disturbing, to say the least. I'm not gonna go too far to that. But yeah, there's a sequel that was released that a lot of people didn't like because it didn't make sense with the first one. And as a standalone, it's pretty decent. I would go check it out if you're okay with seeing that kind of shock part in it. Yeah. Anyway, the next movie that I'll talk about, we only have like 1, 2, 3, 5 more to talk about, and the next one is, yeah, I don't know Mari, but anyway, next one is the debut of Jordan Peele with Get Out that came out in 2017. I haven't seen this one myself, but I've heard that Jordan Peele's movies are very good. We'll talk about another one of his at the end of this. But this is basically a movie about an interracial couple that goes to the girlfriend, who happens to be white, girlfriend's home to meet with her parents for an annual get-together. And what we find is some very creepy fucky shit. Where the white people are very much obsessed with the black peoples. And those that are black that are at this event act very oddly. It doesn't make sense with how, you know, the culture is now, that and there's a reason for it. There's a lot of weird racial incidences in this that I'm not totally comfortable covering in certain ways, because obviously the climate that we live in, you're asking for trouble. But you basically see the family fucking with the boyfriend through hypnosis, and realize that they are trying to use his body, or take over his body, to do God knows what. And you're watching the boyfriend just desperately try to get away, which he does at the end, as far as I'm aware. I don't know how to properly describe all of this without it being taboo, but that's, you know, the gist of it. It's really fucked up. There's probably plenty of people that can cover it better than I can. Yeah. But I'm not going to go over that too much because of how I could get really fucking canceled for it. Anyway. I don't know who he is. He's Shitman the Barbarian, The Hills of Eyes. Funny. Lol. The next movie is I guess. It's A Quiet Place. Released in 2018 by John Krasinski. And basically this one is like a post-apocalyptic setting where these blind alien species that use their hearing to attack people, basically kill the entire human race. And we just follow a family that's trying to survive the invasion, while the mother of the family is in, you know, Emily Blunt is pregnant at the time, and you're watching them try to navigate this world and survive to have this child. And I think it's a good basis for a movie. I have a good one, Rock. I'm probably not going to be on for too much longer. I've only got a few more movies to talk about, and then I'm going to shut it down. But thank you for coming by. I really appreciate the donation as well. It's very much appreciated. But this actually had a part 2 that came out this past year. Bless me, shit. Oof. But it's a good premise. It's a decent movie, and if you like creature features and kind of creature feature alien invasion movies, this is a good modern one. Yeah, I just had to sneeze. I'm sorry. I had sneezels. It happens. But yeah, that's A Quiet Place. Third to last movie I'm going to talk about is Hereditary, directed by Ari Aster. This movie gets nothing but praise in my book. It's one of those very psychological movies that just get under your skin in so many ways. And I can't blame people for being, like, genuinely disturbed by this movie. It's basically you're seeing a family that's going through a string of really bad events. And one of these events happens to be the death, in a very gruesome way, of their daughter. This scene of the daughter literally sticking her head out the window and then having it just taken clean the fuck off by a fucking tree. It's disturbing. It's very much disturbing. And it's this sense of, like, you can feel the family falling apart. But what they find out is that all this is happening specifically because there is a demonic cult that wants to indoctrinate their son and make them the leader of this cult. Which they do. They succeed. From what I understand. Or what I remember. I haven't watched it since it came out, but it's very good from what I understand. Oh, you're back already? Huh. Welcome back, Rocker Ruin. Hope you got all the beers. But it's very polarizing. As polarizing as the next film that I'll talk about in a second, but it's a good movie. I, from what I remember, enjoyed it, and it does deserve the praise that it gets, in my personal opinion. Now, the next one I'll talk about was brought up. If you guys follow Dr. Skipper, I do. I love the Skippy Man. Skipper is great at what he does, and he recently did a video on the A24 movies, and this is one of them, Midsommar, by Ari Aster, that was released in 2019. This one was controversial because it was marketed as something similar to normal horror movies, when it's a psychological one, and it's not what it was hyped up to be. I haven't seen it personally. I don't really wanna, in all honesty. But I have heard good things about it, and I've, seen plenty of reviews. One person in particular that praised this is Mystic, and if you guys don't know, Mystic is a pagan of the Norse mythology pantheon, and she watched and very much loved this movie because of how true it was to that sort of religion, and how they portrayed the practices of that specific religion, pagan mythology or pantheon. It basically has a girl, starts out very, very fucked up, where the girl survives a family tragedy where her sister kills her family, but kills the rest of her family, and then commits suicide, but she somehow survives this. And while this is happening, she's also experiencing a very downward turn with the relationship with her boyfriend. And even though all this is going on, she decides to go on a trip with friends to this cult, to look at this cult. And weird things start to happen, from what I understand. There's this whole breakdown where she feels completely betrayed by her friends, and is chosen as what is called the May Queen after a certain, ritual is performed, or game is performed. It's really a ritual. Come on, let's be honest. And she does eventually get revenge, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. I don't want to spoil it for some people who haven't seen it. It's very it makes you very uncomfortable the whole time through, from what I understand. Yeah, Nicole, but it's a good movie from what I do understand. It's not something I would go watch, but if you're into those kind of movies, I would go watch it. The last movie that I will talk about is in the one of the more recent Jordan Peele movies. I don't remember if he put out something else recently. Did he? I don't remember. No, he was part of the Candyman thing. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, he did the remake for Candyman this last year. But the last movie I'll talk about is Us, that came out in 2019, and I find this one to be very interesting. I again haven't seen it, but I've seen a lot of reviews about it, and I do at one point want to watch it and maybe review it at some point. But this is extremely interesting because of the topics that it touches upon. there's some on the way, Miguel C, but the most recent one that came out was Candyman, which I haven't seen, and I don't know if I want to because I love the first one better. I love it so much. I love the first Candyman so much. I don't know if I want to touch the remake, but it's interesting because it centers around a family that returns home from a beach trip, a black family, and they are met by these violent doppelgangers of them that are trying to break into their home and take over their life, kill them and take over the life that they have. And we watch this family basically go after and try to kill these doppelgangers, and they're called the Tethered, and they find out that the U.S. basically created this underground experiment of genetically cloning all human beings and putting these clones in an underground system and keeping them locked there. Well, these guys have escaped and are trying to take over the family's lives so that they can actually have one instead of being trapped in an underground system with barely any food and, not really, they're barely surviving, from what I understand. The big twist of this is that the mother is one of the Tethered, and the doppelganger of her is the original copy of the particular character in this family. And they switched places when she was young enough to where she could live out her life and grow up completely, whereas the doppelganger, or not the doppelganger, the original copy of the person didn't grow up for the most part. Yeah. It's very, very twisty and turny, but it's, from what I understand, a very good movie, and I'll have to take a look at it very, very, very soon. But that's the last film I have to talk about. I'm not going to go into the 2020s because we only have a few years of that. And that's really all I have when it comes to the history of horror movies. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the series and enjoyed my little bits and pieces talking about a bunch of different movies, a lot of which I haven't seen. I hope you guys enjoyed my little collab with Nox Archive. Great guy, great YouTuber. If you guys could subscribe to him if you can. I really appreciate everybody coming by and supporting, even though it should have been done already. All this should have been done by the end of October. Things happen, life happens. Thank you for the $20 again, Rock and Ruin. I really appreciate the support. Thank you guys for coming by and supporting the series. I'm planning on going back to probably doing something serial killer related maybe next week, since I'm going to be gone again for another week, and then go back to finishing up the Everyman Hybrid series. I'm working on a review for Muskie Mike that he requested when he became a Patreon. If you guys would like to suggest movies or like to suggest cases in which you want me to talk about or something you want me to talk about on stream, please feel free to support the channel and become a member or become a Patreon of the channel. All of that information is in the description. Thank you guys so much for, again, supporting, and have a wonderful rest of your day and sweet nightmares.